Lesson 32. Frieda's first day in London. Mr. Priestley and all the students. Mr. Priestley, you are getting near the end of your year's work now, and I think we want something rather different for our last lesson or two. Now suppose one or two of you give a short talk, or tell a little story or describe an adventure that happened to you. You can choose whatever you like. I want you to talk to the other students for about 4 or 5 minutes, and then I will tell you what mistakes you made, if there were any, in grammar or construction or pronunciation. Now who will speak to us at tomorrow's lesson? You will, Frieda? That's very good. Frieda, I don't suppose I shall do it very well, but I could tell you about a little adventure that happened just after I came to England. Hob? Oh. I can tell you of something that happened to me the first day I came to England. Olaf, a funny family named Wiggins, lives next door to me. There's Mr. Wiggins, a little fellow who gets blamed for everything. There's Mrs. Wiggins, who does all the blaming. There's young Timothy Wiggins, and last, but not least, there are Grandma and Grandpa, Mrs. Wiggins' parents. I've written a little play about them. Could I read that to you? Mr. Priestley, that sounds splendid. So, at tomorrow's lesson Frieda can tell her adventure, the next day we will have Olaf's play, and then, the day after that, Hob will give us his story. The next day. Frieda, I shall never forget, as long as I live, the day when I first set foot in London. I had come from a quiet little town in Switzerland, and I had never before lived in a big city, so London was a new world to me, and I was dying to find out more about it for myself. The general opinion abroad is that London has fog or rain, or both, every day of the year, but on the day that I arrived it was fine and warm. There was a bright sun and a cloudless sky. The next day was just as beautiful. There was a slight wind that gently moved the leaves on the trees, and you could smell the spring in the air. Life is grand, I thought, as I took Anthony, the little boy of the house, for a walk in Kensington Gardens. It was a straight road and I found the way quite easily. When I got my first sight of the gardens, the beauty of it all nearly took my breath away. The trees were just bursting into leaf, fresh and green and lovely, and there were beds of spring flowers, red and yellow and blue, in the beautiful, smooth grass under the trees. People in light spring clothes were about, and, to my surprise, they walked not only along the paths but also across the grass, and no one said a word to them about it. I had never seen such a thing before. We passed a pool in which ducks were swimming, a children's playground with crowds of happy children, a figure of Peter Pan in bronze, more water with boats on it, and everywhere people whose language I could not understand. Well, it was time for us to go home, but which way was it? We hurriedly turned down one path that I thought would take us back, and found ourselves in Hyde Park. My mind was quite confused now, and I was rather frightened. I ran to the left and to the right and asked several old ladies for the way to Addison Road, but I found to my horror that I could not understand a single word they said in reply. I wandered on till I came to a big open place where I saw men standing on a chair, or on a platform, or on the ground speaking or preaching, and people of all kinds were listening or asking questions or making remarks and sometimes laughing at the speaker. Other groups were singing loud and earnestly. Of course, I could not understand a word and was greatly surprised, but now I know this is the famous Hyde Park meeting. There is perhaps nothing else like it in all the world. Meanwhile, the sun had gone behind a cloud. I was terribly tired and wanted nothing in the world so much as to be at home. At last we got to the park gate at Marble Arch, but this was worse than ever. There were buses, high and fearfully red, motor cars, bicycles, people, and again in an endless line buses everywhere and people climbing in them or hurrying along, while I stood lost in the midst of them. I was ready to cry, but there was little Anthony who had waited 2 hours for his tea. In despair I crossed the street onto an island, where I found a policeman. He was a head taller than any other man, and I took my last bit of courage in both hands and said, "Please, sir, where is Addison Road?" He began to explain, but when he saw that I couldn't understand he became helpless too. "Are you French?" he said. "No, Swiss," I replied, but I speak French. Wait a moment. I learned French at school, mais j'ai presque tout oublié. Prenez cette route, allez tout droit, et la 11e rue à gauche c'est Addison Road. The French was bad and the pronunciation worse, but it was more beautiful to me than all the words of all the poets. He smiled and then he raised his hand. How wonderful! The traffic stopped, even the red buses stood still and waited until I crossed the road. I soon found myself in streets and roads that I recognized again. Life was grand once more. The sun came out from behind the cloud and London was a beautiful city, but for me, the best thing in it was the blue policeman at Marble Arch. But I have almost forgotten it all. Take this road, go straight along, and the 11th street on the left is Addison Road. The sun came out from behind the cloud and London was a beautiful city, but for me, the best thing in it was the blue policeman at Marble Arch. Exercises. Exercise 1. Use the following in sentences. Cloud, confused, group. Smooth, path, despair. Pool, to my surprise, wonderful. Horror, slight, earnestly. Exercise 2. Write questions to which the following are answers. You will find the following openings useful. How? How much? How many? Who? When? Did you? Have you? What? Where? Why? Which? What sort? 1. I had come from a quiet little town in Switzerland. 2. There was a bright sun and a cloudless sky. 3. I had never been in a big city before. 4. There was a slight wind that moved the trees. 5. Anthony, the little boy of the house, was with me. 6. The general opinion abroad is that English weather is always bad. 7. As I walked in the park I thought, life is grand. 8. The beauty of the gardens nearly took my breath away. 9. There were beds of flowers in the grass under the trees. 10. I had never seen such a thing before. 11. I passed a pool and a children's playground. 12. I ran to the left and to the right. 13. I asked several old ladies the way. 14. Because they couldn't understand my language. 15. There were 10 children playing by the pool. 16. It was about 5 o'clock then. 17. The people were listening and asking questions. 18. Most of the buses were red. 19. Anthony had waited 2 hours for his tea. 20. The best thing in London was the big policeman. Exercise 3. Show what difference, if any, there is in pronunciation and meaning between the words in each of the following groups. Put each word in a sentence. All the words have been used in Book 1 or Book 2. 1. Where, were. 2. And, hand. 3. There. 4. Our. 5. Hair, her. 6. No, now. 7. By. 8. It's. 9. I. 10. Clothes. Composition exercises. 1. Tell this story in the third person. 2. Write about an adventure that you have had.
Dear friends, thank you very much for your support, for watching and for liking. I wish you success in learning English. Subscribe to our channel, and good luck.